It's early morning on Sunday, the 4th of June, 1967, at Palma de Mallorca. A British Midland Airways charter flight is preparing to take people home to the northwest of England. The aircraft is a Canadair C-4 Argonaut, a big four-engined prop airliner reliable in its day, but by the late 1960s, already starting to feel like an older generation of passenger travel. On board are 84 people, in total 79 passengers, and 5 crew, mostly ordinary, probably tired, sunburnt, and thinking about work the next day. Nothing about this departure looks dramatic. Just another holiday flight, lifting off into a brightening sky. As the Argonaut heads north toward England, its routine airline life, steady engines, cabin chatter, the slow drift from holiday mode back to normal life. The destination is Ringway Airport, Manchester. And the flight number that day is British Midland Flight 542. By late morning, they're descending into the busy airspace around Manchester. From the passenger's point of view, this is the easy part. The holiday is over, and home is nearly in sight. Manchester approach begins to shape the aircraft in, guiding it toward the airport. Everything here is familiar to cruise headings. Descent rates, radio calls small, precise instructions. Below, Greater Manchester is waking up into a normal Sunday streets. Rooftops, churches, parks, shopping areas. Flight 542 is now at the stage where flights usually end with a gentle thump on the runway, and a short coach ride home, but the approach isn't going to be straightforward. On the first approach, the aircraft doesn't get established properly for landing. The crew decide not to force it, so they do what crews are trained to do. When the approach isn't right, they go around, power up, climb away, and set up for another attempt from the cabin. This can feel odd. People notice the engines, the climb, the sense that landing should have happened but didn't. Still, most passengers would assume it's nothing serious. The aircraft circles to try again. Now, Flight 542 is lining up for the second approach to Manchester. At this point, the Argonaut is low enough that people on the ground can see it clearly as it comes over the area around Stockport. Low aircraft near an airport isn't unusual, so a lot of people probably glance up, then carry on. Inside the cockpit, the crew are focused on getting the aircraft into a stable landing, profile, speed, configuration, descent, alignment, and then suddenly the flight is hit by a problem so severe that there may not be time to fully understand it. On approach, the Argonaut suffers a double engine failure. To engines on the same side stop producing power. Investigators later concluded this was caused by fuel starvation, linked to a dangerous design ergonomics issue in the Argonauts. Fuel crossfeed, selector system, something that could lead to fuel being taken from the wrong tanks without the crew realizing until it was too late. Whatever the exact second-by-second cockpit actions, the result is clear. The aircraft is now losing the power it needs at the worst possible moment, low altitude, configured for landing, with almost no spare height to recover. Now the aircraft is struggling over a built-up area, rooftops and streets directly below. People on the ground look up and realize this isn't a normal approach anymore. The aircraft is too low. The angle looks wrong, and it doesn't sound right. This is one of those moments that communities never forget, when an ordinary Sunday suddenly has a hard edge of danger in it. In the cockpit, the crew are fighting to keep the aircraft flying, balancing speed, dealing with drag, trying to hold control with power missing. As the Argonaut continues to lose height, there are strong indications that the pilot still manages some control, enough to avoid hitting houses and steer toward a small open area. That matters because this crash happens near the center of Stockport. If the aircraft falls into densely packed streets, the death toll could have been far higher. It's a brutal choice in seconds. The crew can't make the airport, but they can try to pick the least worst place to put the aircraft down, and then the remaining control runs out. The aircraft crashes at Hopes Carr. Near Stockport town centre, the impact is devastating. Wreckage scatters, structures are struck, and fuel ignites. And here's a detail that still feels astonishing given the location. No one on the ground is killed. The loss of life is terrible, but the crash does not become an even wider tragedy across the town. Almost immediately, fire takes hold around parts of the wreckage. Emergency services rush in, police and firefighters moving into a scene of smoke, noise, and confusion. This is the phase where every second matters. People are trapped, survivors are injured, and conditions are dangerous for many victims. What happens after impact fire, blocked exits, and damage inside the cabin will be the difference between escape and no escape. Alongside the emergency services, local residents also respond, people who are simply nearby, who run toward the scene because that's what humans do when disaster happens on their doorstep. In events like this, the rescues are often made up of small acts, someone guiding an injured person away from danger, someone passing water, someone holding a hand, someone lifting wreckage just enough for another rescuer to pull people through. That same day, Stockport becomes a rescue scene and a place of grief. Word spreads fast. Roads are blocked. Sirens are constant. A normal Sunday becomes a town emergency. This is the wider aftermath. The shock on faces, the stunned silence mixed with sudden noise, the practical work of cordons and ambulances, and the awful realization that many of the people on that aircraft were only minutes from home. For Stockport, it's not just an aviation story. It's something that happened right there, on familiar streets. When the numbers are confirmed, they're staggering. There were 84 people aboard, 72 died, 12 survived, all with serious injuries. It becomes one of the worst air disasters in British history, not because it happened in a remote field, but because it happened in a town, in daylight, in front of people's eyes, and the grief spreads outward. Families expecting a coach home, phone calls that never come, doors that don't open. The Accidents Investigation Branch investigates and concludes the double-engine failure was caused by fuel starvation, tied to a previously unrecognized vulnerability in the Argonaut's fuel system, especially the cross-feed selectors, which were awkwardly placed and could give an unclear indication of what was selected. The inquiry also notes fatigue as a contributory factor, with the captain having been on duty for a long period still within limits, but significant, and it examines survivability. Investigators found that seat rows could collapse together like a concertina, trapping people and preventing escape, pointing to interior design issues that could turn a survivable impact into a fatal situation. So the cause isn't just one mistake. It's a chain: design risk, human factors, and timing meeting at the worst moment possible. For decades, Stockport carried this in memory through anniversaries, reunions, and quiet remembrance. Today there are memorials in the area, and the site has been developed into a memorial park at Hopes Carr commemorating those who died. And that's the final note of this story. Not just catastrophe, but remembrance of the passengers and crew, of the survivors, and of the locals and responders who ran toward the wreckage that Sunday morning. Because for Stockport, this wasn't just an accident report, it was a day the town never forgot.